really want to thank you all for coming out today. I know it's late in the semester and everybody has a lot going on. But I think this is a great opportunity to share some of the work that our Constitution Fellows have been doing. So just to give you guys a little bit of a background, Ann Rickbos from the library is here, and she, a librarian, has been working closely with 4 of our Constitution Fellows to research through the Xavier University archives to better understand and explain how Xavier has engaged the American founding and the Constitution over the years. And our students have been able to find some really interesting material from the archives that I think gives us a sense of our past, and I think equally importantly, maybe gives us some inspiration for the future about things that we can do and about things we can learn from them, and hopefully to engage the ideas of the founders and to engage questions about the Constitution. I mean, we're in a time in American politics, right, which is there's actually a lot of foundational arguments being made, arguments about the Supreme Court, arguments about the Electoral College, arguments about the role of the presidency, arguments about power and states and how much authority they have in relation to the national government. So there's a lot of really interesting questions that the founders grappled with that we get to grapple with today, and I think that's as the founders sort of intended it. I want to thank Ann Rickbos from the library. Ann has been a tremendous partner. She's been a great leader. I've done none of the work, so it's been Ann and our Constitution Fellows who've been doing this work all semester, and it's been an absolute pleasure to work with her. And I think that she's really taught the students a great deal. They've learned a lot from the experience, and then what we're going to do today is hopefully give them the opportunity to share a little bit about what they did, what they found, and then ultimately what they learned, and share that with you, and we can talk a little bit. The question I'm going to have for all of them is what can we do to move this work forward? Where do you see this work as sort of informing what comes next here at Xavier? So I want to thank the Jack Miller Center for the American Founding, for the study of the American Founding and America's founding principles for their support. They've been a tremendous partner in this. They've worked with donors and who have been tremendous advocates for this sort of work, and I'm very appreciative for the trust that they put in us to do this work and to use this funding to do worthwhile things. One of our plans is we've got a American Founding and Constitution minor that is under review right now. We're hoping to launch that, if not at the end of this semester, at the beginning of the very next semester. We have an American Founding and Constitution graduate certificate program that's under review as well. So we're hoping that this semester is sort of a jumping off point where we can continue to do this work, and I'm very grateful for the fellows for all that they've done, the work that they've put in over the semester, and this will be an opportunity to hear from them. So first off, we have Savannah Hugenberg, everybody.
Hello everyone, I'm Savannah Hugenberg. I'm a philosophy, politics, and the public major with minors in econ and psychology. Now for my project, over the course of the semester, I've been doing research on a former summer camp here at Xavier called Operation Youth. My research included going through the university archives to look at old manuals, brochures, pictures, letters, awards, and more. From this research, I have compiled a 22-25 updated version of the brochure that looks similar to this, but it could be used for hopefully a revamp of the program, maybe in future years. Now, you may be wondering what Operation Youth is. It was once a hallmark of civic education here at Xavier University. This one-week summer program, initially launched in 1950, brought high school juniors and seniors together to cultivate leadership, democracy, and a deep understanding of their civic responsibilities. By offering students a chance to experience the tenets of American democracy firsthand, the program left an indelible mark on thousands of young men and eventually women who passed through campus. In its early years, Operation Youth emphasized a well-rounded experience that combined academics, discussion on American values, and hands-on engagement with real-world civic activities. This sleepaway camp-style program was primarily aimed at instilling democratic principles in high school boys through a variety of methods. From lectures by university professors to field trips where students observed American institutions in action, ultimately, the program opened its admission to women, reflecting its growth with the modernization of American culture. The brochure to my right here for the 16th annual Operation Youth, held in 1965, provides a snapshot of the typical experience. Delegates participated in flag-raising ceremonies, attended lectures on Americanism, and engaged in discussions about democratic values and governance. The day was tightly scheduled to include a combination of assemblies, guided tours of local industries, and recreation, ensuring that students were exposed to different aspects of American society. These sessions also provided opportunities for the young students to network, meet peers from different backgrounds, and share ideas. Notably, the program had strong connections with the space program in Cincinnati, reflective of America's goals at the time. The Franklin Institute, which was a science museum, held panels and demonstrations, giving students insights into how the space industry and scientific progress tied into larger questions of national identity and technological advancements. Operation Youth's curriculum also incorporated discussions of family life, economics, and the relationship between business and democracy, recognizing the importance of these factors in maintaining a free society. Michelle Watts, who's actually with us here today, formerly Speed, participated in Operation Youth in 1985 and later became a senior leader in 1988. She looks back on her experience with fondness, calling it one of the most impactful things she's ever done. For Michelle, Operation Youth wasn't just about learning the mechanics of government. It was about building relationships, developing leadership skills, and gaining a deeper understanding of our American freedoms. Michelle's memories reflect the rigorous and structured nature of the program, which was known for being highly disciplined. It was an honor to be chosen from your high school, she recalls, emphasizing how seriously participants took the program, under the leadership of Program Director Bill Smith, also known as Smitty, a professor of accounting at Xavier. Smitty ran the program with a militant sense of organization, ensuring that every part of the schedule was adhered to with precision. It was like a retreat, Michelle remembers, a place where we not only learned about politics and government, but also shared our personal stories. In fact, it was the first time for many of the participants, especially boys, who felt comfortable sharing their vulnerable experiences. These exchanges built strong bonds, and for Michelle, some of those friendships lasted a lifetime. Her role as a senior leader also highlighted the collaborative, hands-on nature of the program. Smitty assigned senior staff members to be in charge of different aspects of the daily program: the field trips, discussion groups, flag-raising ceremonies, and more. She took on the responsibility of overseeing general assemblies, organizing debates on real-world issues like contraception, and ensuring that every participant stayed engaged. But beyond the structured activities, Michelle was struck by the genuine respect and trust that developed among the participants. She remembers a particularly powerful moment with a young black participant who later credited Michelle for changing his life. The level of sharing was incredible, she says. People from different races, genders, and backgrounds came together and were able to talk about things that we usually didn't have the opportunity to discuss. It was profound. While Operation Youth may no longer be a fixture at Xavier University, its legacy and stories endure today, as do the experiences of those who participated in it. For alumni like Michelle, the program was more than just an educational experience. It was a life-shaping journey that fostered leadership, deepened civic understanding, and built lasting friendships. In an age of political polarization, as Professor Mariani was explaining, the values of Operation Youth, mutual respect, open dialogue, and shared commitment to democracy are as vital as ever. Though the program has ended, its impact continues to inspire those who had the privilege and honor of being a part of it, leaving a lasting imprint on the future leaders of our society. Thank you.
So yes, hello everyone. My name is Nick Watts, and I have been researching the role that former Speaker of the House, John Boehner, played in the ratification of the 27th and most recent amendment to the Constitution. Former Speaker Boehner actually wasn't anywhere near the speakership at the time that he was ratifying the amendment. In fact, he was a freshman representative from the 8th District of Ohio, just to the west of here. So the reason that this is a very important connection to the Constitution from Xavier University is because former Speaker Boehner was a 1977 graduate of the school. So I will be detailing this process right now. So, what is the Madison Amendment, or the 27th Amendment, as it's now known? Well, what you may not know is that early on in the founding of the country, James Madison introduced 12 amendments, 10 of which would be ratified by the new states at the time and would become what we now know as the Bill of Rights. However, there were two that were never ratified: the original First Amendment and the original Second Amendment. The original First Amendment had to do with congressional apportionment to different states. That actually never made it through, but as I'll get into later, technically it is still alive and could come back 230 years later. Because as we saw with the precedent set with the Madison Amendment, or the original Second Amendment, is that apparently we can ratify amendments 200 years later. So the whole process is just very interesting because it had never been done before. The longest period that ratification of an amendment took was nowhere near 202 years. Anyway, I've got the text of it right here. It's very simple and short. No law varying the compensation for the services of the senators or representatives shall take effect until an election of the representative shall have intervened. Basically meaning Congress cannot raise its own pay until the next election. If they vote for a pay raise, the current Constitution says that the election must take place. The voters must approve of the salary increase until that can actually be applied to Congress members. Whoa. So, why revive it? Well, it actually started with the gentleman on the left here. That's Gregory Watson. He was a student at the University of Texas, Austin, I believe. In 1982, he wrote a paper for a government class detailing why he thought that the United States could ratify this amendment that the correct threshold of states never ratified. His teacher gave him a C on the paper. She wasn't happy with it. She thought that his idea was bonkers and just was totally off on the fringe of kind of the political thought at the time. So Gregory decided to write to a bunch of state legislators from different states, and so in the mid to late 1980s, states like Maine started ratifying this amendment because they actually agreed with Gregory Watson that not only was the pay raise amendment a good idea, but that it was, up to them, it was still alive. So fast forward to the 1990 election. What happened in 1989, I believe, the Senate decided to raise its own pay by $23,000. So in the 1990 midterm elections, a gentleman named John Boehner ran for Congress from the 8th District. He won the election, and as you can see in this op-ed here, he asks, where were you on the night of July 18th at 9:50 p.m.? That's the evening the Senate voted to give itself a $23,000 pay raise. It outraged a bunch of people. They were not happy that the Senate voted to do this, and so John Boehner, as well as others in the Republican and Democratic parties, started asking themselves, what can we do about this? How can we change this? As Mr. Boehner found out, there was a lot of support behind his push to ratify the 27th Amendment. In the 8th District, the constituents were approving of his amendment, as you can see from this newspaper clipping on the right. And on the left, it was not just former Speaker Boehner, but he actually got together with a lot of his freshman colleagues to create this process as the 1990 kind of freshman class project was to get this amendment over the finish line. There were about 5 states by it would have been January of 1991 when they were sworn in. So by about January 91, there were 5 states left to get it over the 38th threshold. And so all of the freshmen took it up that year as a class project. And it wasn't just from here in Ohio. Another local representative, Charlie Lucan, was also in Congress at the time, elected that year. So combined with his support, he was a Democrat and John Boehner was a Republican. So kind of with their support together, it was a bipartisan issue here in Ohio. However, this was not just limited to Ohio. On the left here is an op-ed from Virginia talking about how they need it. And this on the right is an op-ed from the city of Chicago saying that that this amendment is needed to fix the Senate, raising its pay outrage. And so as this demonstrates, there was really a groundswell of support for this new amendment across the nation. It was not just a local thing. However, it was the Xavier grad John Boehner who spearheaded this initiative. So John Boehner got to work very quickly. Once he got to Congress, these letters are all from his very first term as a freshman member of Congress. He started reaching out to all sorts of people from across the country, but specifically in states where it needed to be ratified. So here are letters from Xavier's archive. On the far right is Michigan. This is from Nebraska. That's from Louis Dodak there on the left is from Nebraska. And then on the left is from California. So he recognized that you need to build connections with people that he'd probably never met before, and had to kind of rally the support from those specific states that needed to ratify it. So with his successful push to convince these state legislators that this idea was important, he was able to convince not only these guys, but these guys went back and convinced their own legislatures that this was a good idea. And I really like the letter on the far right, which is the letter to the gentleman from Michigan, because it ended up being Michigan on May 7th, 1992, that finished the job and was the 38th state to put the 27th Amendment into our Constitution. Now here's where it gets interesting, because the amendment process that we would maybe think of as something that's clear cut. There's a guidebook. It's a you do this and this and this. That's not the case at all. Specifically, with interesting constitutional questions that the 27th Amendment opened up, were ones like the question here: who says in the country that an amendment is an amendment now? Is it even legal to ratify an amendment that's been in the process of being ratified for 200 years? What is going on with this? What kind of precedent are we setting? I'm going to get into that on the next slide. However, on this slide, who makes it official? So the gentleman on the right here is Don Wilson. He was the archivist of the United States at the time. Now, not many people know that we even have an archivist of the United States, but whoever this person is in this role, at any given time plays a very important role in ratifying a constitutional amendment, because they are the person that officially deposits the amendment. But again, is it up to Mr. Wilson, or is it up to I have a picture of just 102nd Congress, that was the Congress when this amendment was ratified. Is it up to them? They voted after May 7th to say, hey, we're cool with this being an amendment, but who is it really up to? Thankfully, at the time, the 27th Amendment was not controversial enough to have people, going to war over, is this going to be legal or not? It was, like I said, relatively uncontroversial because many people thought it was a good idea. But in the event that it was controversial, I think that it would, it could possibly cause a very big problem, because everybody was just kind of okay with accepting it. But if that weren't the case, I think that we would be in kind of a tough spot. So finally, I want to conclude with, over the whole process, what kind of precedent did this set? What was also interesting during this ratification process was that you saw different states, so I believe it was Wyoming and other states using interesting lines of logic to validate their passing of the amendment. So, for example, one of the states said, "Hey, in the resolution passing the amendment in their legislature, it said something about how Vermont was Vermont was the first. Vermont was the 14th state. They were the first state to be admitted to the Union that was not one of the original 13 colonies. So one of the questions was, with an amendment this old, does the threshold increase as the amount of states increase? So we have 50 states now, which would raise that threshold to 38 states to pass an amendment. So some people didn't know if that threshold only applied to how many states existed at the time the amendment was introduced. Some states said no. Some states said, hey, Vermont ratified this when they became the 14th, so we're going to ratify it now because the threshold has increased. Other controversies around this were the questions of, as I mentioned at the beginning, is a 200-year-old amendment even allowed? Is it dead? Is it alive? Do we not know? There were some Supreme Court cases that declared things, certain amendments dead or alive or not. So it was really a lot of confusion, which continues today, because there are outstanding amendments on, like I said, the original First Amendment is still outstanding. There is currently an amendment that is still outstanding that would ban the government from doing anything about slavery. That was introduced in the 1850s. And there was an amendment introduced in the 1880s or 90s that had to do with child labor and banning child labor in the United States. All three of those are technically still alive, no matter what Congress says. Because according to this precedent, as opposed to the ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment, where there was a time limit set at the beginning of that, if that was not set, according to this precedent, it's alive forever until it is ratified, or maybe it never will be ratified. So for me, doing research in the archives and finding all this out and connecting this back to a Xavier grad who donated his papers to the university, super insightful. And also, I would also go as far as to say that I don't know what kind of issue we could ever agree to pass an amendment on, at least as long as maybe I'm alive, honestly, because even for something as relatively non-controversial as this, the amount of time and questions and effort that it took to get this over because it has to pass, for an amendment to become an amendment, it has to pass through 2/3 of the House and Senate, and then 2/3 of states have to ratify it. So again, we're so divided on so many controversial issues. That's why whenever anybody says, hey, I'm going to pass an amendment to change this issue, you'll probably get laughed at because it's just so hard. So I think overall, this was a victory for good government in America, and I think that former Speaker Boehner I think he did the country a service by putting the effort in that he did to get this over the finish line. So thank you very much.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Ann. I'm going to be reintroducing a event that we used to hold on campus, and it was one of the first events held on campus. The George Washington Oratorical event was in place to mostly, during the time, Catholics were receiving a lot of hate, and because of that, Xavier, as a Jesuit institution, decided to use George Washington as an idol, and kind of just show that their goal is to create leaders for America and the vision of being patriotic. So I created this brochure here, which basically is more advertising as if we were to hold it today. And the difficult part about that was mostly the fact that everything was always changing throughout the years. When it first started, it was a mandatory event for students, and every student on campus either had to participate or just attend and watch. Where later, as it got bigger, the school got bigger, that wasn't possible anymore, and it started to transition to not only just being held on Memorial Hall on campus, to start traveling all over the place throughout Cincinnati. So I wanted to just read, I had wrote a little newsletter, which is just describing overall what the event was. So, the annual George Washington Oratorical Competition was founded in 1841 following the beginning of St. Xavier College and continued through the mid-20th century. This classy meeting emphasized Xavier's mission to create America's leaders for the future. As featured in the archives, the Catholic Telegraph and Cincinnati Enquirer held issues about this event. It was known through the greater Cincinnati area to be an intellectual gathering, welcoming all but children. The program is complete with the 8 final competitors presenting their speech dedicated to a selected social dilemma, musical performances, and an atmosphere fostering debate. These Xavier students worked their way through auditions to earn an opportunity to speak at this distinguished George Washington birthday celebration. During this final contest, one winner will be selected to receive the Alumni Gold Medal, based on the quality and delivery of their speech. This selected student will be granted the award during commencement. So, the purpose. Around the time of Xavier's origin, there was a general distaste towards Catholics from the predominantly Protestant American population. Most of this came from fear, partially because of the recent separation from England, along with many issues that seemingly arose due to Catholic immigration. Beyond that, Jesuits were known to be extremely powerful people throughout Europe, raising concerns on the idea of a Jesuit institution creating America's future leaders. Xavier worked on relinquishing this by using George Washington as an idol within the college, due to the general understanding that he was a noble American leader, known to express patriotism and had a strong sense of civic duty. The mission behind this celebration is to push students to pursue an issue relating to the United States, promoting students to take action in society. So this event began in 1841 in the spring following St. Xavier's College taking over the Athenaeum. The celebration of George Washington's birthday became an annual event. In the early years, as I said, it was mandatory for students to attend. The majority of the early planning was done by the Philippidian Debate Society, but as time went on, the Alumni Association took over, and the judges for this final event started to come from the Alumni Association. Along with that, they introduced what was known as the Washington Gold Medal, which can be shown in the center here in my brochure. The event was held often in Memorial Hall on campus, but as popularity grew, other venues became available. In the year 1911, the celebration occurred at the Grand Hotel in Cincinnati, where over 100 guests were reported. So yeah, this overall event it was an interesting project for me to go through, especially as a finance major. I have never done research like this before, but going through and finding and kind of creating my own vision of what this event would be like today was very interesting. Seeing that in the past, the debates, during the time period, there was issues with students who would live close by and they were heavily against slavery, and then there were students from the South who would travel here, and some of them even owned the biggest slave farms in America or in their state. So there was debates of current events in this time period on this, and it was just an intellectual event anyone from the Cincinnati area could join. So, thank you guys.
What was the one thing that surprised you the most in the process of your research? Start with Savannah.
I was honestly blown away with the archival process and being so delicate with such a old but yet living document. I was also really just blown away by the fact that we used to have a program such as Operation Youth. I couldn't imagine that it would be able to be alive today, only because I don't think kids or anyone really in general is as disciplined as these individuals were, and the fact that these schedules were so regimented and they had flag raising ceremonies that I've only done because I went to a Catholic grade school, so I know about that, but I highly doubt many kids do that today. So it's just fascinating to learn about the different culture and values that we'd like to still have today, but that were so prevalent and prominent in the 1950s all the way through 2000. So it was very interesting to learn about.
Flag raising was at 6:30 a.m.
Yeah, nobody's getting up at 6:30
Nobody's doing
a.m.
that now.
That's another great point, is these kids got up early and went to bed late and had smoke breaks, and I don't think we would have that today. But yeah, fascinating work, truly.
I thought that the most surprising thing for me was, so all of us spent since August working on this project. And in total, to write my whole paper, to get this whole thing, I got through about maybe 4 folders, maybe 5 folders, which, I mean, these were thick folders. And having to look at every piece of paper, it took a long time. There are, how many boxes?
60.
Over 60 boxes in this collection. It is unreal, the amount of material that is in the John Boehner papers, and so I was just shocked by that. You know, I really did not expect it to be that breadth of papers. So, yeah.
So for me, I mean, coming into this project, I was a little bit confused on why we had a celebration just about George Washington's birthday. It was just bizarre to me, especially being that it was one of the first 2 celebrations ever held on campus. The longer I looked into it and the more research I did, I found that it was done to show that, to like reduce fear towards a Jesuit institution in America at the time. And the more, like, looking at the different speeches, it was definitely difficult to even find the idea that that's what they were doing, because they were all student curated speeches that aren't kept in records. So it was all just going off of the titles and more records of what people's ideas of the event happened. So it was very interesting to look through and trying to see and find the purpose of this event. And it was cool to see that they were trying to make or show that the Jesuits were creating leaders for tomorrow.
Cooper, you had a question?
No, it was answered.
I really do quickly want to say thank you to Anne, though, like, seriously, because
Yes, thank you very much.
because like the amount of coordination you had to do around my schedule to get into research.
Thanks for your 8 a.m. availability.
It was fun. Yeah, I'm gonna miss it. But seriously, that was good, and yeah, it's just that I just want to emphasize again that, like, the stuff that we looked through was a lot of times it was very dense, and archival work is sometimes really tedious because you've got to read everything on the page because you never know what you could miss or be skipping. You know, it's not like you can skim it and look for another, oh, okay, like, I'm done with this. No, like, you've got to go through and really break down the primary source that you're reading. And then real quick, I want to just thank primary sources, because I think that primary sources are super cool because they actually came from that event. So you can talk and speculate about everything that happened, but what's cool about the archive is once you go there, it's like, that's right there. That document was from that event, touched by this person or that person. I just thought that was super cool. So yeah, thank you.
So if we did have an Operation Youth or Washington Day or an opportunity to celebrate our American leaders, what would you envision? What would you want to be the highlight of that?
For me, I'd like it to be the discipline of the day and the regimented schedule, because I think discipline and routine is a very important thing. But I genuinely do believe the highlight would be the discussions, because I think kids more than ever today do enjoy discussing, almost more arguing, but to transition that into discussion would be a great thing, and I think that would be the highlight of the revised Operation Youth.
So with the George Washington Day, I feel it would be very difficult to get people from the Cincinnati area to come in and watch us perform speeches. But if it were to happen, I think definitely the biggest part would be the final performance of it and showing that, like, it's more of a process for the students. When I first looked at it, it seemed as if it was like a one event type of thing where students prepare for it and they show up and they present their piece. But it was more of like audition based, where students would prepare their speech, they'd go in and they would go through the rounds of auditions before the final students were selected. So that putting together that final celebration, I think, would be the best part about it.
Do a rap battle maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that could be a more modern version.
Right, if that's what gets out there.
Modern version of it.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you so
Thank
much.